father eventually divorced, and I lived with my mother for the first 13 years of my life when my father was in the military. And he would send us money. And my mother was the type who would get money and would use it for things that we never needed. Like I remember one time she bought a pizza cutter, but we never had pizza. Never had pizza. And she would use that money to buy clothes for us. And we always had to do without. Even though he sent us money, we never really had a lot of money. So we always had to do without. She would always buy corduroy pants in the summertime. And then I would say, Mom, I need to wear shorts, so she would cut them off. And I don't know if you've ever worn cut-off corduroy shorts, but the sweat soaks in, and all this just comes tight around you, and you can't breathe. And my mother would always cut my hair because we couldn't afford to go to the barber all the time to get real haircuts. And whenever she cut my hair, she would leave these little patches of bald spots. And I'm like, why are you leaving? Can you give it to my grandmother because she has more steady hands than you? Why are the bald spots? She's like, John, I'm not a barber. I'm like, then why are you cutting my hair? Then don't cut my hair then. And I was always teased. I was always made fun of. I was never cool. My clothes was always a mess because of her. And pretty much every day I went to school, I always looked like I'd just been attacked by a dog. So every day for the first 13 years, right? So finally my father gets out of the military. And his whole plan, and my mother too, even though my mother didn't want to, they felt it would be in my best interest to go live with my dad so he could raise me to be a man. Now, if you're familiar with inner city children, most kids don't have their fathers, unfortunately. And because I had mine was treated like a superhero. And that's the way I saw him. When he came home, he had this military suit, briefcase. He just looked like a soldier and not like a fat homeless man like he does now. But he just looked like this super soldier. And he came home, he had this presence about him. And he sat me down. He's like, John, I know the problems that you've been having in school. I know, but all that's done with. You're going to move with me, and you and your brother, I'm going to raise you up, and you are not going to have any more of those problems. I was like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I'm moving you to a better neighborhood. You're getting away from the drugs. You're going to get away from the violence. And let me tell you something, there's going to be a lot of white people there. And I was like, what do you mean by a lot of white people? And he goes, the majority of them are white, but don't worry, it's still a mixed area. Blakely is still a mixed area. There will be black people there. Blakely is completely mixed. Don't worry about it. Trust in me. Trust in Dad. And I did. So me and my brother left my mother, and very traumatic thing, I lived with this woman for 13 years. Now I'm moving away to go live in Blakely. You know, completely diverse Blakely with my dad, right? And we come in to Blakely, past Inan, right, towards Blakely. And I'm looking around, and I see not only do I not see black people, I don't see anything black at all. I don't see any black dogs. I don't see any black cats. There's nothing black. There's nothing black except for the street, right?
Okay.
So we're going to Blakely, and we actually lived in Timber Falls, my friend. I don't know if anybody knows where that's at. You know where that's at? We moved to Timber Falls, and by the time we get to Timber Falls, me and my brother are steaming. And my father, he knows this. He knows why we're mad. And he's like, oh, what about them trees? I'm like, no, forget them damn trees. Where are all these black people you promised? And he goes, I'm sure they're here. We just haven't seen them yet. I'm positive. They're going to be around here. I'm like, Dad, no, naturally, I don't care about fitting in or anything now. But when you're 14, that's like everything new. That's more important than living, is fitting in and being accepted. So me and my brother, we were very nervous. We're like, Terrence, you know all these people, all these kids are going to be white. Their parents are going to be white. Their grandparents are going to be white. And he goes, Dad said it was mixed. He goes, yeah, there's Italians over there, Irish over there, and Polish over there. That's it. He goes, we're going to be ushers, we're going to be run out of town. Then, now we have lived in Blakely about I think it was like a week before I ended up going to a freshman orientation. Then my father, he knew me and my brother's concerns. He knew that how bad we wanted to fit in. He promised us. He promised us that everything would be all right and we would fit in. He says, John, I know how you want to fit in, and I know you're nervous about it, but I have the solution. Trust in me. Trust in your father. I will never steer you wrong. I was like, okay, I'll trust you. But what do you suppose I should do? He goes, all you have to do is dress like these white kids dress. If you dress like the white kids, they'll accept you. I was like, okay, well, what do white kids wear? All right, first thing white kids love to wear, and I'm not making this up, they love to wear slacks. They all wear slacks, dress pants, and he gives me these slacks, and I try them on, and he goes, these are really tight. He goes, exactly. That's what white people love. They love tight clothing. I don't get it. We don't get it, but trust in me. Trust me. And he gives me this ugly striped shirt, and he gives me a bow tie. Because I swear to God, I have pictures. He gives me a bow tie because that's what white kids wear. They wear bow ties, and then he goes, John. I got the ketchup to your cheeseburger right here. He goes to his drawer and gives me suspenders. Suspenders because that's what white kids wear. All the white kids wear suspenders, bow tie, and tight dress pants, right? And me, I've never seen a white kid for the 13 years of my entire life. So I go and look into this mirror, and I'm like, I look awesome. I look awesome. I look like James Bond, right? This is great, right? So and then he finally goes, Terrence, you want me to hook you up like this? My brother's always been smarter than I have, and he goes, I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't worry. I'm good. Thank you for the offer, but I'm not. So I go to my orientation, and to my surprise, none of the white kids are wearing even close to what I'm wearing. No bow ties or suspenders. They all have jeans, shoes like normal people. And my father's like, wow, these must be the bad kids, John. Good kids, trust me, John, trust me. These must be the bad. So I'm like, oh my God, this is going to end in disaster, right? So we get out the car, and I'm going to freshman, and I'm already like, and especially, and you can imagine when you're moving to a new school, you're already nervous. You can imagine how extra nervous I was. So we go into this school, the pants were super tight, they were riding up here. And then I'm like, Dad, none of these kids are wearing anything close to what I'm wearing. He goes, John, trust me. I have no reason to trust you as I am looking at these other people, right? So we go into orientation, and I'm sitting, and naturally, right, like I should, I'm sitting in the back of the auditorium. And I'm just hiding myself. I'm like, I just want to get through the day. My father's like, John, why are you sitting back here? Go up to the front. I'm like, why? And then he goes, John, trust me. Go up to the front. They're going to love you. So I get up. My brother grabs my arm, and he's like, John, don't go. Don't go. Do not. You have listened to him enough. We have 4 more years to listen to him. Do not. So he's like, I finally go. And I see 400 eyes just looking in my direction. All these kids look exactly normal. I look like Malcolm X. Right? So I'm sitting. So I sit down, and I keep my head down. I'm like, oh, this is so embarrassing. They're so nervous. All these girls come up to me, right? The upper class girls, they come up to me to talk to me, to introduce myself. My father's like, do you see those girls come up to you? That's because I look like a little kid. It's just, and then he goes, but then to make this story short or whatever, make a long story short, I was embarrassed. My father goes, you know what, John? And it finally hits me, you know what, John? Maybe you shouldn't have worn the suspenders. That's what he said. He said, maybe you shouldn't have worn the suspenders. You should take them off. I'm like, no, because if I take off these suspenders, I'm taking off all of it right now. And then, but what happened was, which I thought was pretty cool, my fear was a little bit realized. A lot of the kids, they were kind of distant. They didn't really want to talk to me. But there was about 5 or 6 kids that came up to me, introduced themselves, shook my hand. And one kid, I swear to God, He looked at me and he looked at me up and down and says, "You thought that's how he dressed, didn't you?" You thought that's how. I'm like, no, God, no. I would never think that. All right, I think that's my time. Thank you.